Welcome, ACSA family and friends, to Common Purpose, Uncommon Times. I'm Wes Smith. It's my pleasure to serve as the Executive Director of our amazing association. I'm really excited tonight to have some loyal friends and allies from state PTA joining us. We've heard from site district leaders, from school board members. Last week we heard from students, and now we get that invaluable voice from our parents to really balance out this conversation about school closures and reopenings, the impact of the pandemic, and just how do we make public education what it needs and ought to be to benefit all 6.3 million of our students. So really excited to have them on tonight, and we'll get to that in just a second. As you know, this is, as we say, uncommon times, and our houses are uncommonly adorned. We have offices everywhere. As I've joked on this show with all of you before, I'm sitting at a dining table with mounds of stuff that you can't see. I didn't want you to worry about me, though. In the background, you see a sheet hanging down. No, my wife hasn't kicked me upstairs to sleep on the banisters yet. My son, my amazing son, was auditioning for music theater programs at colleges all weekend, and we set up a backdrop for him. So he acted and he sang and he danced his heart out. He did a great job, and we've moved it now so we can eat in our dining nook since I'm here. Anyway, so that's why you're going to see a sheet behind me for all of you who have seen this for 7 months and thought, what's going on with Wes's sheet? But we're excited about tonight. Thanks for being here. I want to make you aware, as we always do on Wednesday, we have the ACSA Legislative Brunch, 1 o'clock. Edgar Zazueta will be there talking about current legislative issues. They'll also be digging into what's been going on at CDE with the accounting template. They'll be talking about any of the issues going on at the Capitol, and they'll also be looking at the Schools and Communities First funding initiative. As you all know, we critically need more funding in public education. Schools and Communities First will provide about $3 to $6 billion annually. No, it doesn't affect local property taxes, individual property taxes. And you'll want to tune in and listen to Edgar unpack that and help people see how they can help others support this initiative. By the way, speaking of Edgar, I'd encourage all of you to ask him really, really tough questions in the chat tonight. I suspect he's watching Facebook Live, but I also think he's probably watching the Dodgers tonight. So let's see if he answers you with balls and strikes, or he's really listening to the questions you ask. You're welcome, Edgar. Want to also remind you the Leadership Summit registration is open. Again, 20 hours of live and recorded programming, November 4th through 5th. That's ACSA.org/Leadership Summit. It's going to be an amazing online event. We just had our Personal Institute, and it was really, really well done and beneficial according to all of the surveys. So, Leadership Summit, we want to see you there as well. Hey, let's dive in. As I said, we really appreciate what parents and caregivers are doing all across the state to be, I think, more than ever, allies in public education. They've become adjunct faculty in so many instances. And so tonight we get to hear from state PTA. So let me welcome on Celia Jaffe, Leah Dara, and Carol Green. Join me, ladies. Thank you so much for being here. I'm going to let you introduce yourselves and tell our audience what you do at PTA. But before we do, I just have to say, how cool is Sherry Griffith, right? How amazing is Sherry Griffith? She worked with me and tried to, the impossible task of trying to make me sound intelligent. She worked her tail off at it. She tried to help me understand how to work the halls of the Capitol and to better serve our members. I'm just so grateful for her. And I've just seen her do amazing things with all of you. I've seen the presence of PTA really kind of step up in recent years, the activity. So Sherry, thank you for everything you've done at ACSA. You'll always be a part of our ACSA family. And now at PTA, it's impressive anyway, hey, and you're welcome to comment on Sherry as well when you do your introduction. But Celia, let's start with you. Tell them your
Sure.
role, then we'll go to Carol and then Leah.
Hi, I'm Celia Jaffe. I'm president of California State PTA, and we do really appreciate ACSA, giving Sherry all that experience and training her up to do that much better a job for us. So we're all about that. Thank you.
How about Carol? Let's hear from you.
Hi, I'm Carol Green. I'm the president-elect for California State PTA, and I try to learn everything that Celia is doing so that I can do it next year. And we love Sherry. She tries to make us sound intelligent too, and sometimes she succeeds, and we'll see what she does tonight.
Awesome. Carol, how about you? Carol,
Hi.
Leah. Good to you, sorry.
Yeah. Hi, Leah Dara. I'm the Vice President for Education for California State PTA. And I, too, am a big Sherry fan. She is a mentor and always lifts up people into leadership. We're very lucky to have her, and I hope to keep her for as long as she'll stay.
Awesome. Hey, let's dive right in with the questions for tonight. We started this Facebook Live and YouTube broadcast 7 months ago with the closures, not knowing how long they would be, the impact they would have. We thought, oh, it's just a couple of weeks. Is it a week? And as it turned out, for some districts, it's a continuation of what they started 7 months ago. So let's start there. How were students, according to parents, according to the PTA, impacted by school closures in the spring and into the summer? Just kind of characterize that from the parent perspective, please. And Celia, let's go ahead and start with you.
Sure. Well, as many people's experience was, I think parents were just kind of blindsided in March, and I think the different experiences based on whether their own work environments were also closing or not, or how they were finding out what they needed to do with their children, how to hook them up with virtual schooling. It just I think it varied all over the place. The experiences I heard about were from the ends of the spectrums, from the we can't believe they got this all pulled together on 1 week's notice to the I still don't know exactly what's going on with my child or if they're getting what they should have.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Let's go ahead. Carol, how about you? What have you heard from parents about the impact of that abrupt closure? Who knew? We weren't hearing anything about it in the news. The state hadn't said anything, and it was dropped on our leaders, your parents, and all of our students to make these tough decisions. So relative to closures, what was your experience with students?
It was really, of course, sudden. It was more like emergency distance learning rather than, a planned distance learning. We did a listening tour, and we tried to listen to find out what our members were thinking. And as Celia mentioned, just the whole gamut. In the beginning, when people didn't know how long it was going to last, I think some families really tried to embrace it as some family time and some time out from the hectic pace of things. But as it wore on, people were really upset, and people struggled with different things. Kids with special needs and different needs had a different perspective than kids that were fine studying on their own. So it really it ran the gamut, and parents. The main thing we heard was they really wanted to know what was going on. So the biggest takeaway from that point was tell us what's going on, even if the answer is we don't know what's going on. Just tell us that, because we're not hearing anything. So that was one of our biggest takeaways from the closure last March.
Carol, that's interesting. I often hear that from PTA when I've been at your events, when I participated in roundtables with you, or just in conversations like this, the importance of just communicating. Even bad news is better received when it's communicated proactively than when it's like pulled out of people, right? And so I appreciate you saying that. I think it's important for our members to hear it. I want to come back to the emergency concept in just a second, but Leah, how about you? You actually have students in the system right now. What was the impact of the closure on students, or your students specifically?
Sure. So, I mean, I think Celia and Carol give a good characterization of statewide what we saw and the issues that we saw for parents. Personally, my youngest was a sophomore last year, this year a junior. And so we had the experience of that turning on a dime, going into distance learning. And while we were glad she was safe at home and not exposed to COVID, she did miss out on the social connections, the special magic that classrooms have and teachers offer, and the peer-to-peer learning that definitely happens much more naturally in a classroom environment. But you know, we were very thankful that the statewide decision to keep children home was made, because we most of all wanted our daughter to be here safe and alive for her junior year.
Yeah. Hey, thank you for saying that too. It's all about safety first, right? I mean, we've got to be protecting the safety of our students. They're not just their physical, we'll talk about this a little later, but their academic and social emotional safety, and of the adults who serve them and everyone related to them, right? Because it's not just that person, it's everyone in their pod, their bubble, etc. Lee, I have to tell you too, your staging is awesome. Your staging is better than mine. I got sheets hanging up in my background. You've got a join PTA behind you. My member services staff right now, if they're tuning in, they might be watching the Dodgers too, are telling me, yeah, Wes, where's your join ACSA sign in the back? So Leah, I think you've changed my backdrop moving forward. Thank you for that. Carol, I want to come back to something you said, because you know, we just heard about the state stepping up and saying we're going to stay closed until these safety guidelines are met. And, you know, hopefully you were able to see ACSA's reopening guide, where we called on the state in our call to action for them to have statewide standards for reopening. But then getting to your point, we also wanted them to have statewide standards for high quality education. Because what we were hearing from people, and you just said this, it was a crisis. And I think parents were giving us all a pass for the most part in saying that, hey, we know you didn't expect this. We know you didn't anticipate it. You didn't have time to go buy a bunch of computers. Our teachers haven't been trained on this, right? So, all right, we get it. However, we also know that the best way to mitigate loss of learning is high quality instruction, high standards, all of those multiple supports that our students need. And so what were parents calling for then in the summer, right? We gave you a pass in the spring. The fall is X months away. In the meantime, folks, let's do X. What were they calling for?
And the pass only lasts for so long, because, you know, your child only has one 5th grade year, one 3rd grade year. So parents wanted consistent, regular communication with consistent, high quality education. And they wanted their kids to be safe. But we have heard better things, not all perfect, but that the distance learning is improved for the most part. From what it was in the spring. So they wanted that consistency. They want to have communication, not just, we were saying, knowing what's going on, but they want to know what to expect for their child. And they really wanted that consistency of, you know, like every morning at 9 o'clock, it's going to be this, because in the spring it was a bit chaotic. So routines, high quality education, regardless of whether it's distance or hybrid or going back to school. And they wanted to know what to expect. What should I be looking for? How can I support and help my child? Just for a couple things.
Thank you. No, thank you. And we're going to get into the question about reopening models, how's it going and all of that. But I really think it's important for our members to know that we had allies like you saying that the system must guarantee that when we reopen, however that's designed, that we do so and ensure high quality instructional opportunities daily for our students. And I know you were allies, but I loved that you said that. Did either one of the other two of you want to say something about high quality moving into the spring?
Well, we did.
Celia, go ahead. Yeah.
Moving into for high quality instruction, I just wanted to mention, in case I don't get the opportunity later, that we just released a principles for reopening schools document. Just came out today, actually, through our email service, and will be on our website. And so we should be able to. It's because parent groups are being asked so much about what they expect during reopening, and to give feedback and to kind of help them think about all the different aspects that are important for reopening from parents' point of view, families' points of view, and also for our education system in California as a whole. So it talks about students who may have problems with distance learning. It talks about having, as was already mentioned here, kind of scientifically tested ways of making things safe, and really all that real connections and predictable schedule and all things like that. Anyway, so we really want people to know that that's out there.
Well, we're gonna help you get that out there. I know we're asking your team if they can put the link to your reopening guide in the chat box. We want to make our members aware of it. We've been grateful that allies, CSBA has done work on this. CASBO, the CCEE has done some great work on reopening. Like, they were one of the first to publish something, and so we'd love to have yours as well. Leah, did you want to mention anything about quality as well before we get into the different models for reopening and what you're seeing?
Well, I think Carol really hit it on the head that each student only has one third grade year or one senior year. And so we want to ensure that our students are still getting the grade level standards information they need, and in a quality delivery model. So, as much as we understand all the limitations of distance learning and in many different areas, we still really want to advocate and encourage parents to be looking for that. Minutes can be important, but truly, what is your child getting out of that experience? Are they learning? Are they keeping their love of learning? Do you feel like they're keeping up with their what you expect them to be learning in the year? And those are ways for parents to advocate for their children in a positive way and talk to the teacher, because we know that the school wants the kids to learn as well.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. No, thank you for that. I'm going to stay on you because you have a student in the system, and now we've reopened somehow, either 100% distance, some hybrid. We know one of the things that our members are aware of is that these yo-yo plans are really stressful to them. They're stressful to the students. They're stressful to the parents. What I mean by that is they'll have a plan that the state might change the color band or how it's interpreted. And so they've notified parents that they're going to do something and they might have to change that. We know that has an impact, but however they've opened, how are the reopening models going according to your parents? And then what's concerning them most? We'll get into the social emotional in a minute, but other than that, what's concerning parents most as a parent of a public education student? What's concerning you most?
Sure. I think that all of us, what we like out of public school is the routine. The routine, we know each year this happens, that happens. And so having a lot of unsure factors in our kids' education, well, personally for my own child and what I've heard from so many of our members, that's difficult. So the reopening plans are sort of guidance plans, but then we have to take into account the individual counties' health conditions, the COVID cases. There's a lot of other kind of factors that are moving at the same time. So I think the best way to answer it sort of in a global picture is the more parents can be informed of the plan, they have the opportunity to give input, they understand the reasons why plans might be made in a certain way, and they have enough time to give meaningful input. If you ask a parent what they think, be prepared for them to tell you.
Yeah. Amen to that. Parents, spouses, be prepared to hear what they're going to answer. That's right. Carol, how about you? What are you seeing around the state from your members? How's it going? What concerns them most?
I think that, they're just such a wide variety. So I have a 6-year-old nephew who has so much energy. This kid, could climb a tree every single day, and his mom is an essential worker, And so he's 6 years old, and now he's got to sit in front of a computer for a certain number of hours, and his dad's there. He's working from home and trying to sort of mitigate it. But Jaden just has so much energy, he doesn't know what to do. So they just take him out in the afternoon and let him run around a million times. And I have another nephew who's a senior in high school, and is really, really hoping that he's not going to miss out on the second half of his senior year. And then I have other friends that have lost loved ones to COVID. So it's really a balancing act for all of us to figure out how to be safe, and how to make sure that our kids are being educated, but also to make sure they're not getting too much screen time. We're not just plunking them down in front of a computer and walking away. So it's really been the gamut across the state. We've seen a lot of a variety.
Wow. Celia, I'm gonna move into the next one. You can certainly mention something overall that's a concern to parents, but I hear consistently across the state people that are very, very concerned about the social emotional wellness of their students and the adults who are serving them, and your members, parents who are struggling to work or be parents and to be pseudo educators, etc. So what are your members saying about the social emotional wellness of our students and their concerns thereof?
Well, I think that we are in a little bit of a new phase, somewhat paralleling the change from last spring to the fall. And that in the spring, this is emergency circumstances, and we can make things work, and so people were running on a certain amount of, I think, adrenaline. And now that feeling that this is a long haul, and that we are sequestered here in our little family unit, and all the things that we have to juggle day to day of parents' work, kids' work, trying to have some privacy, some fun, all of it, that it's for the long haul. And I do think that brings a sense of longer term stress and worry. And obviously there's great economic worries. We definitely have heard from our leaders and members about lost income, lost jobs, worrying about people are moving in with other family members. People are it's just huge amount of stress on the family, and trying to keep the children a little bit sheltered from that, not to have the children sense it, that the parents worry. So I do think that's a really common feeling around the families today.
Yeah. Wow. No, thank you for that honesty. I want to remind our ACSA family and friends and PTA family and friends now, if they've signed on tonight, that if you have questions, put them in the chat. We probably have enough time tonight for one or so, and we'll ask those questions. Leah, did you want to say something too about the social emotional impact on students? I mean, again, you have one. You've alluded to this a second ago. Anything more you want to say about that in particular, though?
Sure. Well, we're experiencing in our own home. My daughter is a kid who has most of her needs met in her life. She's not food insecure. She has a place to live, but she's struggling with some anxiety and depression, just from losing the connections of school and the routine. And I think also just not knowing when this is going to end and knowing when things will get better. She's really experienced quite a difficult go through this. So academically, she looks fine, but there are evenings where she's in tears.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you. We just got a question. So let me pivot to this. And Carol, again, if there's something you wanted to say on that, feel free. But we've been asked, I think it's a great question. Renee Bryant asked, what are your thoughts on compassionate grading? Would either of the three of you like to address that?
Well, I think that it's most important that the kids get the content of the grade level content, and we have to acknowledge that there's going to be some deficits in their internet access, their ability to stay online, So in my own home, we try and focus more on what did you learn, not what the grade is. Obviously, we want kids to do their best. But I think that in places where they didn't feel like students could be given the best opportunity to do their best, then compassionate grading makes sense. But I think that it has to be, the community has to be well part of it, because I know parents' concern in the high school years about college admissions and such. So my answer is, I assume college will look at these couple of years of COVID and say, you know what, all the old rubrics are a little off. I'm hoping that they will. And so in those cases, then you'll be able to write quite an essay about the time that you had your mom baked sourdough bread for 2 months straight.
Yeah. Great example. No, and I think we've seen evidence to what you're suggesting, that colleges have gone test, no test, test optional. So they're adjusting their entrance standards to provide for that. We, like you, as parents of a high school age student, we sure hope they are looking at these alternative, kind of indicators there.
I have.
Please, Celia, go ahead, please.
Thought about that, or a couple of observations. One is I definitely heard from parents in the spring who's particularly, I'll say high school age kids, said it's pass fail now, I'm not going to do anything, because they're not, I've already done enough to pass. And so I think that there is a danger in completely not worrying about how grades and the performance-based grading. There's actually a workshop I went to at an ACSA conference in San Jose a couple of years ago that was so interesting to me about performance grading that I think matches what Leah was talking about, that, have the concepts been learned, or the skills there, rather than the you didn't complete the online worksheet, or the worrying a little less about that assignments completed, and more about, is there proof of learning of the concept? Because we also, as much as things are going to have different admission standards and things like that are likely, but we obviously all want the kids to be learning these concepts during this year. So hitting that balance will be the tricky part.
I just would like to say that, of course, our teachers and our administrators have to be compassionate. This is a really unusual, unique, stressful time, but we want to set our kids up for success. So just passing them when they haven't learned a concept, or they haven't put effort into it, or they haven't done the work, that doesn't set them up for success. And that's, quite frankly, not that compassionate. And also, kids want to take pride in the work that they've done and the grade that they're getting. So I think most teachers that I know are amazing balancers of those items. And I trust most of the teachers, except for the ones I have an argument with, to do a good job with that.
Yeah, thank you. We've got our last question we ask every one of our guests here on Common Purpose. But Sherry will throttle me if I don't give you a chance to share some of the highlights, initiatives, or efforts at PTA. So Celia, since you're the state president, tell us some of the things that you're working on that you want to make our members aware of. We put the link, by the way, the reopening principles, so that's out there. Go ahead and share a couple of the things that you're working on that you'd like for our members to be aware of.
Beautiful. Well, I'll mention a couple things. One is we have an initiative around the next generation science standards, and sort of family activities and fun ways for families to be involved in their children's science instruction or science concepts. And it's hashtag Discover Together, and we think that's a very fun and unique resource. I also, we're going to talk later about hopeful science, right? That's the So that's one of our things. Also, PTA supports parent leaders, the leaders at local PTAs. I always assume everybody knows that, but I just want to say it, right? So a lot of our work over the last 7 months have been helping a local school PTA, officers try to figure out, how are we going to have a meeting? How can we help the parents at our school? How can we make sure we keep going into the fall, and what should we do? And, our local PTA groups, the councils and districts and so on, have done a lot of mutual support, which has, I think, been very meaningful to the local PTA leaders, because when they're in PTA, they have support, and they have, in this instance, there's also kind of commiseration, right? There's some of these leader Zooms together. It's just like, how are you doing something? How are we doing it? Can you believe that we have to go through this? And so that camaraderie, I think, really helps as well.
I'd like to ask my team too, since we're running out of time, any of those links that we've been provided, let's put them in the chat. Let's make sure that everybody watching this who sees it recorded looks at the links and goes to those great resources. Celia, you mentioned hope, right? We started the show to inform, to connect, to educate, and to inspire hope. That's why we started 7 months ago, and we end each show talking about that last item. I'll tell you, speaking of parents, my wife as a parent gives me hope. This weekend, I was busy serving members, and my son's applying to colleges, and she did everything. Got the room, the PVC pipe, the backdrop, the technology, took our dog on 3-hour walks so that my son didn't get interrupted. She's just a warrior, and she gives me hope. She's a parent who gives me hope. Celia, you wanted to jump in on that one too. So what gives you hope?
Well, we get sent projects that local PTAs have done as examples, or people like to pass around things. And there was a YouTube of a local PTA that did a whole parody of Hamilton, of the musical Hamilton, encouraging membership in their PTA, and they managed this all in separately through Zoom and so on. And it's hilarious and creative, and it just shows how ingenious people are.
Awesome. Carol, what gives you hope?
Really, it's the people. It's my PTA colleagues, friends, family. This has been a really hard time for a lot of people. Wow, emotional. But it's our fellow human beings that give me hope, because there's so many people working so hard, and of course, our amazing administrators and teachers and parents, and really all those groups. They just want the best for their kids. They just want their kids to be the very best they can be. And I think that if we keep that goal in mind, the future will be bright, and I won't cry.
Hey, we encourage honesty. Thank you for your honesty and your emotion. Leah, how about you? What gives you hope?
Well, when the pandemic started, we wondered, how would PTA be? How would it look? How would we advocate for families and do our work? Because so much of our work is people work with people. And so I'm really proud and hopeful to see us continuing work that looks beyond the pandemic and that works in the pandemic. So we have our resource library with information now for parents to support student learning. We've got our School Smarts program that supports parents learning about the education system. We moved that online. And then we're developing a new LCAT pilot module, which districts are welcome to reach out to Sherry Griffith about to find out about how to get involved in. And then because equity is so important to us, we are also going to be having an equity listening session. So we are still staying valid and relevant in this time. So it's not your mom's PTA, but all the great things about your mom's PTA are here, and it's the PTA of the future.
I love it. Thank you for that. Hey, everyone out there tuning in, let's do a virtual thank you to our PTA family and friends here for what they represent, what they fight for, and who they serve. Our parents and caregivers are absolutely essential in this equation. For those of you that have early bedtimes, I know we're a little bit over tonight, but we do want to celebrate our amazing students. They also give us hope, and there are a few programs that demonstrate the hope that comes from seeing students overcome amazing obstacles, like our Every Student Succeeding program. Tonight, we want to show you a little video of Danny Dominguez from Bowman High, who's the ACSA Region 15 winner. So if you have time, take a look at this. Again, it's inspiring.
Her situation is rare, but more than anything, it's how she has dealt with it and processed it.
There was so much going on when I was younger. I have 10 siblings, so there was a lot going on, but I didn't live with all of them. I grew up with abuse. My biological mom abused me, and a lot of her boyfriends abused all of us too. I felt like I was an issue for them. I felt like being born was the problem. I didn't know, I just thought that I did something wrong. I thought I was the problem. I felt like if I was dead, then I felt that was the way to go.
You're the epitome of what the school's about.
You know, in education, we all come in and say we want to make a difference. But at this school, we actually truly get to see the growth of every individual child. A lot of our students come really from broken backgrounds, families, and they come here and we're secondary parents for a lot of them.
When I first got here, I didn't talk. I didn't talk to anyone. I think I felt lonely. I felt like I was all alone. I felt like no one could relate with me, I guess.
Danny came to us kind of very fragile, very insecure, lost, like not a lot of direction on what you want to do.
She was still sort of reeling with a lot of, just a lot of stuff in her past, and it was very real. She didn't know where she was going. She wasn't comfortable in where she was living. Everything was just, as I say, it's a snow globe and you shake it up and the snow was still flying around and she wasn't quite sure where it would all land.
We're all about relationships. Relationships are the #1 priority because you can't teach kids that don't want to learn if you don't have a relationship with them.
If you need to talk to anyone, you could literally walk into the office and walk into any counselor or even go to a teacher and they'll stop whatever they're doing just to help you.
Bowman is her happy place. It's her place where she feels comfortable, and as long as she knows she can get to school every day, she's okay.
Bowman is my family.
Oh my goodness, I love you.
They were there for me when I had no one, and like anybody, they're my uncles, they're my tios, you know, they're my aunt, and they're my cousins, everyone, like all the teachers.
She's overcome many obstacles in her life and challenges, and you walk around campus, you see her as a leader, she's smiling, she's confident, and she's positive, and she is what every student succeeding is all about.
Hey, congratulations, Danny, our Region 15 honoree. You'll be able to see all 21 of our ESS honorees on November 5th at the Leadership Summit. So make sure you're there. Again, we want to thank PTA. We want to thank all of you out there for everything you're doing to support our students and one another. Stay safe, be well. We'll see you next Monday night on Common Purpose, Uncommon Times. Thanks.